Well. I hope I'm live and I hope you can hear me. Hello, guys. I was not around last week because I had to play a gig. If you don't know, I play music and I got a last minute proposal to play a gig on a Wednesday night to play on a Saturday. So I barely had time to watch last week's episode and I definitely did not have time to do a review. I'm so sorry about that. And then as the time passed, I was like, man, I might as well just join the episode 3 and 4 reviews together. So that's exactly what I'm doing here. Thank you, everyone who's watched so far. Please like and subscribe to the page. And let's get to it. I'll try to make this quick because I do have to work still today. Well, I'm going to start with just a few lines about episode 3. Another reason maybe I didn't do anything on episode 3 is because I just thought it was okay. Okay, like there was nothing about episode 3 that made me go, "Wow." Um, it was workable. It let us see what else is going on in the universe, which is nice. I was upset to see Book go. Hopefully, he comes back into the series somehow, some way. I like to see how Earth just became like, make Earth great again, kind of, nationalistic. Well, maybe not nationalistic, but planetarian, whatever, however word you would use. Like they're just worried about protecting themselves, right? And there's a nice little morality tale there at the end. It was workable. There was nothing really about it that stood out to me. Although I did like it, and I have been enjoying this season a lot more. So maybe that's another reason I kind of just let it go after a few days had passed because I was like, I don't have much to say about episode 3. Other than that, it was decent. And I like the tone of the show. And I like that they're following up on everybody's kind of trauma of traveling into the future. Michael Burnham's been a little bit more toned down, a little bit, okay? Although much better this episode than in episode 3. And I guess that's all I got to say about episode 3. Not much more than that. I mean, I'm glad Saru is captain. He deserves it. He is an awesome captain. And I'm glad they didn't create a big drama about that. Michael just was like, yeah, you're the captain. And it was that simple. And so he's already one of my favorite Star Trek captains. Unbelievable actor, unbelievable character. So I'm really happy about that, as I saw most people were in the groups. So that's cool. So that's enough about episode 3. Let's get into this episode. And if you saw on the title, we're going to be talking about it. And I put crying. Crying is part of this because, oh my God, this episode made me not cry, but tear up. It's very difficult to get me to actually cry during an episode, but I definitely teared up in two spots. So it hit the emotional muscle. Finally, Star Trek Discovery is maturing. It really is. It's just allowing its characters and the things that they do to tell the story, but the things that they do don't have to be running here, running there, jumping out of here, jumping off of there. Can we get this, fixed in just enough time and that and that? And it's just such a different show right now. Those that skipped out after the first 4 episodes of the first season, come on, guys. I mean, I always repeat the same mantra. Y'all would have never let Star Trek The Next Generation survive because that show blew big monkey balls for its first. You could argue if its first 3 seasons. I mean, there were gems in there throughout that let you know, hey, this show could be something interesting, but it really kind of blew. Okay, Star Trek DS9. I mean, not as bad, I think, the first 2 seasons, but as TNG, but if you compare those first two seasons to what DS9 became, my God, totally different show. So this tends to be the trend with Star Trek, right? You can even argue Voyager got better around seasons 3, 4 after Seven of Nine came on, and or at least that's the Voyager everybody remembers. Those that do like it or have some type of affection for it on some level. Enterprise, I'll admit I haven't finished watching yet, but from everything I hear, season 4 is when it started to finally find itself. Okay, and then I've heard split decisions on season 3 with this Shindy War or Zindi War, whatever, however you pronounce it. I haven't seen it yet, so I can't give my verdict. So, why would Star Trek Discovery be any different? Let the show grow into itself. There's a whole lot. And Star Trek shows are different than any other franchise because they have so much baggage that, before them. And how do you make a Star Trek show that stays within the universe, stays within the comfort zone, but yet has enough leg room to find its own voice? It's difficult to do, guys, because there's a whole lot of Star Trek out there before whatever the new version of Star Trek is. Even Doctor Who, which is one of my favorite shows of all time, I is difficult to do. I mean, it's less difficult to do than Star Trek Discovery because Doctor Who just kind of follows a line, because it's part of still the same universe. Even though we have the new Who versus the classic Who, but technically the new Who is just a continuation of those 20s, what was it, 26, 27 seasons of original Doctor Who. So it's even a little bit less of a challenge because you can just keep on keeping on, just come up with a new adventure, a new adventure, new adventure, a new adventure, a new adventure. And eventually the doctor will die and a new doctor and new adventure. It's not as difficult as Star Trek because Star Trek, although it's within the same universe, it's supposed every show should tell us a different aspect of that universe, uh, while keeping the whole idea of what Star Trek means, exploration and a positive future and hope and all that, while still trying to say, hey, but not every place in space is exactly the same. Not everybody is going to act exactly the same, and this, that, and the third. So Discovery's had a little bit of a tough time at the beginning figuring out what that means for itself. And I think it's come to its own finally. Season 3, it's just breathing. It's allowing itself to breathe, and I love it. I love it, love it, love it. This episode deals with this girl that they found. Well, should I call her a girl? But Adira, who arrived on the Discovery ship when they visited Earth, okay, in the last episode. Ends up she has a Trill inside of her, and she can't access any of this Trill's memories, so they decide that, hey, we're going to go to Trill to find out why it is that you can't access these memories, because she happens to have the memories of this other Trill inside of her who was part of the Federation, and he knows where Federation headquarters is. So very, very important that they get this information out of her, but also very, very important that um, they get her better, because she's got this block in her head. She's got this block. So very, very important. Two missions there that are very important. And then, which was, by the way, it's Senatal, right? That's his name, Senatal. Um, and then I just watched this episode, guys. Just watched this episode. The B plot, it deals with the PTSD, where the characters on the ship are not feeling it after everything that's happened. So this episode really focused on Colbert and him helping the crew, which I thought was wonderful because I really like his character, Cruz, right? He plays Wilson Cruz. He plays a really sweet doctor, maybe not my favorite doctor, but a sweet doctor that I do like. It was nice that he became center stage. I almost wish that he would have been the one that went with Adira to the planet, but he chose Michael to go at the last minute. He's like, you should go with her. And I was like, Michael again. But actually, it turned out great that Michael went. Again, this season is showing us a softer, more human side of Michael. That needs to be the evolution of this character. Yes, she was raised on Vulcan, but she's a human and she's around other humans. She needs to find her humanity. She needs to find her softer side. Could it be that Star Trek Discovery follows some other trope of most Star Trek series where when a character's hair changes, the show changes. Whether it's Riker getting the beard, that's kind of your tell when Star Trek TNG gets good. When Cisco goes bald, when Janeway gets rid of her magic bun, those are the tells of like it's right about here that this series gets good. Could it be when Michael literally lets her hair down that we in the future will be able to say, look, this is when Star Trek Discovery got really good, right about here. And Michael's character, which I always say week after week, I want to love so much Michael's character, but she's a tough character to love, and she's giving us more reasons too. Tiny, 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 tiny bits. One is she didn't cry this episode. Thank you, writers. You didn't have Michael crying. She showed her humanity. Wilson Cruz's Dr. Colbert had this great conversation with her about this post-traumatic. Uh, oh, oh God, where did he use post-traumatic progression? I forgot now, guys. Like I said, I just watched this episode, and I'm about to start work in about an hour. So just wanted to get this video out there. But the idea is that okay, some people have the PTSD where they just get stuck. They're just totally, like the rest of the crew have been. Like they can't be themselves again in a bad way. Whereas they're stuck in the trauma. Whereas this PTS progress, or whatever term he used, is the opposite. It's like where once somebody has a traumatic experience and survives it, when they come back, they have a new perspective on life and they live life now to its fullest in a great way, in a beautiful way, and a more loving way. And he died and came back. So he's viewing life differently. She's lost everything, gone off into the future. She and spent a year by herself alone in this future. So she has this opportunity to be a new Michael. And I felt that was the writer speaking directly to the audience of like, we heard you. And I think they have been really listening to the audience in this show, which I think is cool. And we've been listening to you. We've been listening to your complaints about this character. And we're going to try to soften her up. We're going to try to bring more humanity to her, And when I say soften up, I hope that doesn't come off the wrong way, like, oh, she needs to be more feminine or this. No, she can still be a badass. She can still be Michael Burnham saves the day, which is fine. It's the Michael Burnham show. Not a problem. But she needs to soften up. Needs to soften up in the terms of be more human, be more relatable. We need to relate to our main character, our heroine. It's extremely important. Doug Jones is great as always. Tilly, I'm so glad they toned her down from last season because last season was like, why are you in Starfleet? Like she was beyond. They took the cuteness from season one, which is great, and then I think the writers listened also to the fans and saw how much they responded to Tilly, and they doubled down, and it's like, no, overdid Tilly in season two to the point where she was getting annoying, and now we're back to still naive, but still quirky, but a Starfleet officer, Tilly, and I love it. I love Tilly this season so far. Um, and I like that they showed more of the rest of the crew because there was like an A-B plot. Real great, by the way, this season, how they've really managed to balance the action, the plots, the storylines. It's not so frenetic. And this was classic Star Trek A-B plot. Well, Michael's off on Trill trying to figure out how to get this girl's Adira Tall's. And I know, guys, it's supposed to be non-binary. Forgive me if I get all that mixed up. I respect y'all, but I'm an old bastard too. So if I say girl, because she looks like a girl, okay? Uh, Adira. If they're getting Adira to figure out why she can't get her memories back. There's a whole subplot there with, oh my God, she's an aberration because humans can't have Trill hosts, can't have Trills inside them. They can't be a Trill host. In the B plot up on the ship, where Saru's just trying to figure out how to get his crew back. Real nice. We got to see more of the crew. They had a great little dinner scene reminiscent of Star Trek, The Undiscovered Country, dinner scene that does not go well. So I loved it, loved it, loved it. I loved everything about this episode. Why did I cry? Well, one thing that really touches me with Star Trek, more than the hopeful vision of the future and all that jazz, is the idea of family. Star Trek for me has been so much about family, way back from TOS to the current show. How these people love each other and they have to look out for each other and they have to create a family for themselves. As someone who was adopted but also moved a lot as a child, I was born in Brazil, went to the United States when I was 7, in the US, started out living in my sister's house, then we went to my brother's house, then we got our own little apartment, and as we moved up the ladder, as they say, then we were like 3 4 years in this little apartment, then I think we got into a townhouse, and then after that, eventually my parents were able to buy their own house. Now that's a lot of moving, and going from here to there to there here, from the time I was 7 to 18. I think the longest stretch that I was in any one place was high school, because I moved to a high school, ninth grade to 12th grade. Boom. That's probably the longest stretch. So that means that would, I had to learn, adapt, how to make new friends, how to create a family for myself among these friends. Also, because also my family was very small. It was just me, my mom, and me. I grew up almost like an only child, although I had my brothers and sisters. But the little nucleus was just me, my mom, my dad. You know, so I had to learn, and I think a health teacher that I had around 10th grade or something, she was an Italian lesbian, and only say lesbian because she was one of the first out people that I got to know in my life. That was really cool, and she would say this like, "Look, family comes from the root familia, which is familiar." And I don't know, I never checked her up on her etymology, but I believed her. And familiar, those things that are familiar to you are your family. And your family doesn't necessarily have to be blood. And I guess the troubadour, um, uh, or maybe nomadic of spirit, because I've moved so much, stayed with me. And at 18, I left the house. And I was been here, there, everywhere. And I realized, hey, I've kind of had to make my own family along my journey. Even here in Brazil, I have biological family that I met here, but I have people that I consider my deep, deep family. I love them. In fact, I got my little brother in the other room, but they're family that I've created here for myself because it's these people that I made a deep connection with that I've known for about almost 10 years since I've been here in Brazil. They're as much family to me as my blood family. I would go out on a limb for them as much as I would my blood family. It's it's interesting, so Star Trek speaks to me on that level, on that family level, very much, even more than the sci-fi level. So I went on that big ramble to say what? When we have an episode that deals with family stuff, connections, feeling like you belong when you're out there all by yourself, you know, the proverbial island, whether it's inside yourself or literally an island, out in space. Those episodes touch me the most. They make me cry or get me teary eyed at least. I'll give you an example of ones that stand out for me. The one where Worf, his parents come on board, the Enterprise. That episode just makes me cry so much. There's the episode with Picard and this little boy. Oh, now I can't remember the details, but can't remember now. But that episode makes me cry. I can't remember. Why? Because I believe the little boy didn't have a family or his mom died. I forgot now. I gotta rewatch it. But anytime you have this theme of not just that you're an outsider, because Star Trek always has at least one character, right? That's the oddball out, which I usually, I connect to those characters too. But not just an oddball out, but isolated. Like Worf is an isolated character in TNG. He's not like Data, which is an oddball character, but everybody loves Data, and Data's trying to connect to people all the time, so that's different. Worf is very much Worf, and everybody respects him and loves him in their own way, but he's still very much Worf. He creates that barrier of like, I don't want to be human, I want to be Worf. So then when the human aspect comes in and tells him, no, but you're very much part of what we love. You're very much part of us. That just, you're accepted. We accept you as different as you are. That is touching to me, because that's my life. It's like I'm different. I'm an oddball. And yet I have had people in my life that have said, we know, and that's why we love you. And you don't have to feel ashamed of that or feel threatened by that. This is a safe place for you within our circle. This is what this episode was, because Adira, she was not only alone or an oddball, but she was also alone. Okay, she felt alone, and Discovery embraced her. And then the Trill planet, the Trill embraced her. When in the beginning you're an aberration. This is not supposed to happen. You're human. You should not have this host inside of you. But we are willing to accept you. Okay? I mean, it took a little bit longer for them, but whatever. I mean, you got to forgive people sometimes, right? For their errors. And they made an error in judgment. And I think that's also a big lesson of Star Trek, right? People make mistakes because they're so used to things being one way, they can't handle a different direction. But they handle it in the end. And she was accepted. This is beautiful. And then the family, the Discovery family coming together, even though they have all their trauma and everything. At the end, with watching Buster Keaton. Wow. That's it. That's family. This is a family episode. I'm getting emotional just talking about it now. Such a nice episode because of that. And y'all, again, I just feel bad for everyone that it just skipped out on the series early because this is not Star Trek. This is not Star Trek. If season 3 is still not Star Trek to you, then okay, whatever. I mean, I don't know what Star Trek you've been watching for however long you've been watching Star Trek, because this is not that season one and two weren't Star Trek, but if you want to go in like what people expect Star Trek to be, the hopeful future, positive message, blah blah blah. This season's been it. Okay, they balanced it better. It hasn't been just the Michael show so far. It's been very balanced. I like that we have the underlining thread of where's the Federation, but it's not like this pressing issue that is driving the whole season. The ship gets to explore a little bit more. We get to explore a little bit more, so it feels a little bit more kind of standalone episode, which I like. You know, it makes it more rewatchable in the end. Because as much as I enjoyed season one and two, I don't really have a desire to rewatch it. Because I know that for me to rewatch any of those episodes, it would require me rewatching the whole season. Because everything's connected, one episode to the next, the next. So I like that this gives um, start for me at least a lot more rewatchability, and I think the fans are responding to it. I think season three has been absolutely stellar so far, and I can't wait for season four, season five. Let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Star Trek Discovery is the so far has been the best new Star Trek out. And what else do I have to say? I think that's about it, guys. Like I said, I don't want to go on too long. I did want to talk about judgmental fans because somebody posted in a Star Trek group, and I made the same mistake. That's why I got a little bit. It hit me personally because the guy was like, "Hey, I don't get how the Calypso episode is gonna connect to this because the guy in the ship was with Michael and this and that and the third." So he confused Book and the I already forgot his name, but whoever the guy was in the Calypso episode. And I forgot his name because I watched Calypso like 2 years ago, and I wasn't really. I mean, short treks were okay, but they weren't like, oh my god, like that one was a little bit better, even though I was kind of like, half watching it. Um, and I never watched it again after. Like it was interesting, but it didn't make me go like, oh my god, I just have to, really study this episode and get into it and blah blah blah. I figured, okay, I guess at some point the discovery is gonna end up in the future. That's weird. That's kind of how I felt about it at the end. So I confused those two characters too, and I actually said it. I think in my first podcast, it's like, hey, I mean, I wonder how that connection is gonna be. And it's two different characters, two complete different actors, but I don't know. I don't think it would be that impossible to mix that up, especially with the terrible lighting that Star Trek Discovery used, because they've gotten a lot better with their lighting. The dark and the blues and the dark blues and the dark shadows and blues and blue. That's just the Star Trek Discovery colors. It's gotten better though, a lot brighter this season. Thank goodness. So yeah, I can remember. I thought it was the same character. I could remember that one guy had an American accent, the other guy had a British accent. That was a long effing time ago, right? I can barely remember what I had for breakfast. So stop being judgmental, because then everybody was like, "This is so racist." Yeah, because there is this trope. This trope does exist where sometimes, more often than some black people would like, white folks are like, oh, all black people look the same. So this actor's the same as this actor's the same as this actor. Okay, that does exist. Although I'll tell you on the other side, man, we black folks can't always tell white people apart either. So I think it has a lot more to do with people of the same race are able to distinguish traits of people of the same race a lot easier than people of the opposite race, unless you really work for it. Because I imagine a human, to take it to Star Trek world, would look at Ferengi and say they all look the same, but a Ferengi would tell other Ferengi apart quickly, and maybe Ferengis, when they look at humans, you all look the same. So there's that too. Depends how you express that, I guess, is whether we feel that's coming from a racist view or just, hey, I'm not black, and I guess, I see tall, bald, you know, like if I'm just looking at a lineup and I say lineup, not criminal lineup, but I'm just looking at a lineup, I don't know, basketball players. Yeah, they kind of have a type, right? And if you get into Hollywood, even more. And that's, I commented on that thread. I was like, hey, there's a type in Hollywood, and I can't tell a lot of these, especially these young white girls that are acting. I can't tell one apart from the other. I just did a podcast on Monday with my friend Pete, and I was sure it was this girl, and she even had the same name. It was Emma something, and he was talking about this movie. Now I can't remember the title. The Blackboard's daughter or something. I forgot. But I looked at the picture, and I was positive it was the girl from Harry Potter. And he's like, no, it isn't. I was like, oh, no, you're right, it isn't. But to me, they look the same. So I don't think that's necessarily racist. You can disagree. But for me, the most important part was, where's the Trek spirit? Okay, so the guy made a mistake or he was just wrong. There was nothing offensive about what he said. And instead of jumping on him, you could have just said, listen, like, thank you. The listener who went on my podcast in the comment section, he said, oh no, those are two different characters. And then I looked it up and was like, oh shit, oh snap, you're right. It is. Thank you so much. It's been a long time since I listened to Calypso, which is just, it's the truth. Okay. So that's that. That's that. So, guys, be less judgmental in the Trek community. People make mistakes. Not everybody has Google or knows how to use. Some people are older that like Star Trek. Sometimes we're on our phone because I hate when people like, there's Google. Well, mother, beep. I try not to curse on these Star Trek podcasts. Sometimes I'm on the phone with bad internet in the middle of the road, and the easiest way for me to get information is to go on Facebook because it's like I got Facebook Lite on my phone, so it doesn't eat up all my internet. And I pose a question. Answer if you can. If you can't answer, then shut the up, right? Because it doesn't always work on Google for to go on Google. I mean, I try it on my phone. No, internet dies. Okay, if I'm especially if I'm on a phone. If I'm at home, yeah, I'll usually look stuff up on Google before I ask a question online. But sometimes, guess what? I just like some human interaction. Sometimes I simply want to go into a Star Trek group and ask a question because hey, it's a lot more fun and nice, and maybe I'll even make some new friends if I ask a question in the group and people respond than just going out on Google. So that's also a really crappy thing to say. Oh, Google is your friend. F you, okay? Humans could be my friends. How about that? So that's my story, guys. I'm pretty much done. I got one viewer came in there at the end. Hello. Um, and just remember, this is Star Trek we're watching here. And the most important part of Trek for me, okay, is this idea of community, is this idea of families, this idea of helping one another, be nice to each other, be helpful to each other, don't jump down each other's throats, be cool to one another, and live long and prosper. So that's it, guys. I'll talk to you next time. Thank you for